Experts now believe they know what happened to Nancy Guthrie, and what they are revealing changes absolutely everything about how we understand this case, and about who took her, and about why she was targeted, and about what investigators are now focusing on as the search enters its 6th week. Sheriff Chris Nanos told NBC News in an interview that aired in early March something that sent shockwaves through everyone following this investigation. Quote, "We believe we know why he did this, and we believe that it was targeted. Not random, not opportunistic, not wrong place, wrong time. Targeted, deliberately selected, hunted." And then Nanos said something even more chilling that made it clear this is not just about Nancy. Quote, "So it'd be silly to tell people, yeah, don't worry about it. You're not his target. Don't think for a minute that because it happened to the Guthrie family, you're safe. No, keep your wits about you. The suspect could absolutely strike again, according to the sheriff. Which means investigators believe this person is not done, is still out there, is still dangerous. But Sheriff Nanos is not revealing what they believe the motive is intentionally withholding their theory about why Nancy was taken. Quote, "We're not 100% sure of that," meaning they have a strong theory but are not certain enough to go public with it. Or they are certain but revealing it would compromise the investigation by alerting the suspect to what investigators know. Either way, the fact that experts now believe they understand the why behind Nancy's abduction represents a massive shift in this case from searching for any possible explanation to focusing on one specific theory that fits the evidence. And that theory is not the only thing that has changed everything about this investigation. The FBI is now examining whether the suspect used a Wi-Fi jammer to disable security cameras throughout Nancy's neighborhood during the abduction. Investigators went door to door in early March asking neighbors a very specific question. Did you notice any disruptions or issues with your internet service on the night Nancy disappeared? Multiple neighbors told NBC News and other outlets that yes, they had internet problems that night. One neighbor who lives adjacent to Nancy's home said he has 4 cameras on his property, and the one closest to Nancy's house was, quote, "not available" during the overnight hours of February 1st when she disappeared. Quote, "That's really weird, isn't it?" That neighbor's missing camera footage during the exact window when Nancy was taken is not coincidence, according to investigators who are now examining a damaged utility box found around the corner from Nancy's home that could be connected to an internet outage. Former FBI special agents and law enforcement experts are now saying publicly that they believe an arrest could be imminent. That the $1 million reward being offered by Nancy's family has created what one expert called an, quote, air fryer situation if multiple people were involved. Quote, "They're now in an air fryer and it's just who's going to jump out first. $1 million is a lot of money. That's going to change someone's world. This person is thinking about it and the other person involved knows they're thinking about it. The theory that multiple people were involved, that this was not one lone perpetrator but a coordinated operation with accomplices, fits with the sophistication and planning that the evidence shows. And if there were accomplices, one of them might be ready to flip and provide information in exchange for that $1 million reward and for leniency in prosecution. If you want to understand what Sheriff Nanos and investigators now believe about why Nancy was targeted and what the 6 theories the FBI is examining tell us about the investigation's focus, why the Wi-Fi jammer evidence and the damaged utility box and the neighbor's internet outages during the exact window of the abduction indicate a level of technical sophistication that narrows the suspect. Pool dramatically, what it means that cadaver dog searches have been suspended and put on hold, suggesting investigators may believe Nancy could still be alive, or that the search has shifted to other methods. How the mixed DNA found at Nancy's home that could contain profiles from several people connects to the theory that this was coordinated operation rather than solo crime. Why former FBI agents are saying arrest could be imminent, and what evidence would need to exist for experts to make that assessment publicly. What the sheriff's warning that the suspect could absolutely strike again tells us about the profile of who investigators are looking for, and about whether other elderly people in the area are at risk, and how all of these new developments from early March combine to show that investigators are definitely closer, as Sheriff Nanos said, and that this case may be approaching resolution. Then subscribe to True Crime Vault right now. This channel provides expert analysis of breaking developments in major cases, explains what law enforcement statements actually mean when decoded by people who understand how investigations work, and covers cases through resolution so you understand not just what happened but how investigators solved it. Hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications because Nancy's case is developing rapidly with new expert analysis and new investigative theories and potentially an arrest approaching, and you want to understand what each development means. Hit the like button as well because comprehensive coverage of these breaking developments deserves to reach everyone following Nancy's case. And comment below with your thoughts on what you think the motive is that investigators believe they have identified and whether you think the Wi-Fi jammer theory is correct. Now let us examine each of these major new developments in detail, starting with Sheriff Nanos revealing that investigators believe they know why Nancy was targeted. Sheriff Chris Nanos gave an interview to NBC News that aired in early March, approximately 5 weeks into Nancy's disappearance. In that interview, he made statements that represent the most significant revelations from law enforcement since the case began. Quote, "We believe we know why he did this, and we believe that it was targeted." That statement contains two critical pieces of information. First, investigators have developed a theory about motive, about why the suspect took Nancy. Second, investigators are confident that Nancy was targeted specifically rather than selected randomly. Both of those conclusions represent progress in understanding who they are looking for and why this crime happened. But Nanos immediately qualified that statement by saying, quote, "But we're not 100% sure of that," which means the theory about motive is strong, is supported by evidence, but is not proven definitively. There is some element of uncertainty, some piece of evidence that has not yet been confirmed, some aspect of the theory that requires more investigation before they can state it as fact. That uncertainty is why Nanos is not revealing publicly what the theory is. Revealing an unconfirmed theory could compromise the investigation if it is wrong, or if revealing it alerts the suspect to what investigators know. Then Nanos said something that made it clear, this is not just about Nancy and about her family. Quote, "So it'd be silly to tell people, yeah, don't worry about it. You're not his target. Don't think for a minute that because it happened to the Guthrie family, you're safe. No, keep your wits about you." That is a public warning. That is the sheriff telling the community that the suspect is still dangerous, is still out there, could target others. When asked directly whether the suspect could strike again, Nanos said, quote, "Absolutely. Unambiguous. No hesitation. The suspect is assessed as someone who could and might commit another similar crime." What does that warning tell us about the theory investigators have developed? If the motive was something completely specific to Nancy or to her connection to Savannah, if the theory was that this was personal targeting based on a grudge against the family, or based on obsession with Savannah specifically, then other people would not be at risk. The warning that others should keep their wits about them and should not feel safe just because they are not part of the Guthrie family suggests the motive is something broader, something that could apply to other potential victims. Several possibilities fit that pattern. One possibility, the motive is financial, and the suspect targets elderly people who have wealthy family members who can pay ransom. Nancy was targeted because Savannah is wealthy and famous. But other elderly people in Tucson or in Arizona or anywhere who have wealthy adult children could be at risk from the same suspect using the same method. The suspect demonstrated through taking Nancy that this method works, that elderly people can be taken from their homes, that ransom can be demanded. If the first attempt was successful in the sense of executing the abduction, even if ransom was not paid, the suspect might try again with a different victim. Another possibility, the motive is related to elder abuse and vulnerability exploitation, as former FBI agents Jim Clemente and Maureen O'Connell discussed. The suspect targets elderly people living alone because they are easy victims who can be controlled without significant risk of the perpetrator being injured. Nancy was selected because she is 84 years old, lives alone, is trusting and vulnerable. But those characteristics apply to thousands of other elderly people in the Tucson area. If the suspect targeted Nancy for those reasons, any other elderly person living alone could be the next target. Another possibility that some experts have raised, the suspect is part of a South American theft group or organized crime operation that targets wealthy homes. These groups have been operating across the United States, committing sophisticated burglaries and home invasions. They use technology like Wi-Fi jammers to disable security systems. They conduct extensive reconnaissance before striking. They are organized and professional. Nancy's case could fit that pattern if the suspect is part of such a group. And if so, other wealthy homes in the area are at risk because these groups typically operate in series, hitting multiple targets in the same region before moving to a different area. The fact that Sheriff Nanos is warning the public to keep their wits about them suggests the motive falls into one of these broader categories, rather than being something completely unique to Nancy. And that warning also suggests investigators have not yet apprehended the suspect or identified them to the point where arrest is imminent, because if arrest was about to happen, Nanos would not need to warn the public about ongoing danger. But former FBI agents who are analyzing this case publicly are saying the opposite. Multiple experts have stated that arrest could be imminent. How do we reconcile those two positions? The answer is timing. Sheriff Nanos gave his interview in early March saying, investigators are definitely closer, but warning the public to stay vigilant. Former FBI agents analyzing the case later in March are seeing additional developments and are assessing that those developments indicate arrest approaching. Both can be true if the investigation is moving quickly and if evidence is accumulating rapidly. Retired FBI Special Agent Maureen O'Connell spoke to media about the $1 million reward that Nancy's family is offering. She said, quote, "If there's more than one person involved in this, which I believe there is, they're now in an air fryer, and it's just who's going to jump out first. $1 million is a lot of money. That's going to change someone's world. This person is thinking about it, and the other person involved knows they're thinking about it." The air fryer metaphor is vivid and accurate. If multiple people were involved in Nancy's abduction, they are now under enormous pressure. $1 million is enough money to fundamentally change someone's life. Someone who was involved as an accomplice, who helped plan or who helped execute but who was not the primary perpetrator, might be tempted to provide information in exchange for that reward and for reduced charges or immunity. And the genius of offering a large reward in cases where multiple people are suspected is that it creates paranoia among the conspirators. Each person involved knows that the others might flip. Each person knows that whoever provides information first gets the best deal. That creates pressure to be the first to talk. And it creates suspicion where each conspirator wonders whether the others can be trusted or whether they are already talking to law enforcement. That pressure often breaks conspiracies. Someone decides the risk of staying silent and hoping the others stay silent is greater than the benefit of talking first. The assessment that multiple people were involved is based on several aspects of the evidence. The level of planning visible in the 8 months of Google searches suggests more than one person, because maintaining focus on a plan for 8 months while conducting normal life activities is difficult for one person operating alone. The sophistication of potentially using a Wi-Fi jammer to disable neighborhood cameras suggests technical knowledge and capability that might require multiple people with different skills. The execution of the abduction, spending 41 minutes inside Nancy's house based on the pacemaker timeline, and then successfully transporting her without being seen, could be easier with accomplices providing lookout or assistance. If there were accomplices, investigators would have evidence of communications between them. Phone records showing calls or texts between suspects during the planning phase. Financial records showing payments or shared expenses related to purchasing equipment. Digital evidence showing coordination. All of that evidence exists if multiple people were involved, and investigators would be analyzing it to build the case not just against the primary perpetrator, but against everyone involved. Now let me explain the Wi-Fi jammer theory and why the FBI is investigating internet outages and damaged utility boxes, and what this tells us about the suspect's capabilities. In early March, FBI agents and Pima County Sheriff's Department investigators went door to door in Nancy's neighborhood, asking residents a very specific question. Did you experience any disruptions or issues with your internet service on the night of February 1st when Nancy disappeared? Multiple residents told NBC News and other media outlets that yes, investigators asked them that specific question. And multiple residents said yes, they had internet problems that night. One neighbor who lives adjacent to Nancy's home, whose property shares a border with hers, told reporters he has 4 security cameras on his property. The camera closest to Nancy's house, the one that would have the best view of her property, and that might have captured the suspect's vehicle or the suspect's movements, was, quote, not available during the overnight hours of February 1st. The footage from that camera during the critical window when Nancy was taken simply does not exist. The neighbor found that, quote, uncanny, and said, quote, that's really weird, isn't it? Yes, that is weird. That is suspiciously weird. That is the kind of weird that suggests deliberate interference rather than coincidental technical failure. Other neighbors throughout the area reported that their internet connections glitched on the night Nancy disappeared. Glitches that caused cameras to go offline or to fail to record or to lose connection with cloud storage services. The pattern of multiple cameras in multiple homes all experiencing problems during the same specific window of time is not normal. Individual camera failures happen randomly for various reasons, but multiple cameras failing simultaneously in the same neighborhood during the exact time window when an abduction is occurring suggests someone was doing something to cause those failures. What could cause multiple internet-connected security cameras to fail simultaneously? A Wi-Fi jammer, also called a signal jammer or an RF jammer, where RF stands for radio frequency. These devices broadcast radio signals on the same frequencies that Wi-Fi routers and cameras use to communicate. Those jamming signals overwhelm the legitimate signals and prevent devices from connecting to networks. Cameras that rely on Wi-Fi to upload footage to cloud storage or to communicate with apps on homeowners' phones lose that connection when a jammer is active. Some cameras stop recording entirely when connection is lost. Others continue recording to local storage, but the footage is not uploaded to cloud and can be lost if the camera is damaged or if local storage is limited. Wi-Fi jammers are illegal in the United States under Federal Communications Commission regulations. Possessing them, selling them, or using them violates federal law, but they are not particularly high-tech or difficult to obtain. They can be purchased online from overseas sellers who ship to the U.S. despite the illegality. They are relatively small, can fit in a pocket or a backpack. They run on batteries, and they are simple to operate, typically just requiring pressing a button to activate. The doorbell camera footage from Nancy's house shows what some analysts believe might be an antenna visible in the suspect's pocket, a small protrusion that looks like it could be the antenna of a handheld device. That has prompted speculation that the suspect was carrying a Wi-Fi jammer. If so, that would explain why neighbors' cameras failed. The suspect activated the jammer as they approached Nancy's house, disrupting Wi-Fi signals throughout the area and causing cameras to go offline. That would give the suspect time to approach, to take Nancy, and to leave without being recorded by any of the numerous security cameras that exist in the neighborhood. But experts who have analyzed the theory are divided about whether a Wi-Fi jammer was actually used. Some point out that the doorbell camera footage from Nancy's house is clear and uninterrupted. If a jammer was active when the suspect approached the door, the camera should have glitched or gone offline before capturing the 44 seconds of footage that the FBI recovered. The fact that the footage exists and is clear suggests a jammer was not active at that moment. Maybe the suspect activated it after disabling Nancy's camera, or maybe what looks like an antenna is actually something else, like a handheld radio used to communicate with an accomplice. Other experts point out that commercial Wi-Fi jammers have limited range, typically 10 to 30 yards maximum. They work by being close to the target router, close enough that the jamming signal overpowers the router's signal. From a distance, they can cause lag and glitching but might not completely block connections. And they definitely do not have enough range to affect neighbors' routers that are hundreds of feet or more away. For a jammer to cause internet outages at multiple homes across a neighborhood, it would need to be military-grade or government-grade with much higher power than commercial devices have. Those high-power jammers are large, require significant power sources, and are not easily obtainable. Morgan Wright, CEO of the National Center for Open and Unsolved Cases, told Fox News, quote, "If they say, well, I had an internet outage, it's got nothing to do with an RF jammer. That RF jammer would have to be high-powered, military-style stuff to affect a neighbor." Lisa Miller, retired detective and executive at the Colorado Attorney General's office, pointed out that, quote, "The video of the porch monster released by the FBI didn't appear glitchy at all. I mean, even police car laptops have glitched during traffic stops of someone with a jammer. If a jammer was active, the doorbell footage should show distortion or interruption. It does not. So what caused the internet outages that neighbors reported? The Pima County Sheriff's Department told media that they are aware of a damaged utility box near Nancy's home. That utility box is located around the corner from her house. Investigators are examining whether that damaged box is connected to internet outages that occurred around the time Nancy disappeared. A damaged utility box that contains internet infrastructure like fiber optic cables or network equipment could cause service disruptions to multiple homes in the area. If someone deliberately damaged that box to cause outages, that would disable cameras without requiring a Wi-Fi jammer. It would be a different method of achieving the same goal. Deliberately damaging internet infrastructure to disable security cameras before committing a crime indicates a level of planning and technical knowledge that is extremely sophisticated. It means the suspect understood how internet service works in the neighborhood, understood where the utility boxes are located and what they contain, understood that damaging a specific box would cause outages at specific homes, including the homes with cameras that might capture the approach to Nancy's house. That level of knowledge suggests either someone with professional background in telecommunications or utilities, or someone who conducted extensive research to learn how to disable the system. The fact that the FBI is investigating this theory, is asking neighbors about internet outages, is examining damaged utility boxes, tells us that investigators take it seriously. They believe it is possible or even likely that the suspect deliberately interfered with internet service to disable cameras. Whether that interference was through a Wi-Fi jammer, or through damaging infrastructure, or through some other method, the goal was the same: create a window of time when cameras are not functioning so the suspect can operate without being recorded. If that theory is correct, it adds another piece to the profile of who took Nancy: someone with technical knowledge or capability, someone who planned extensively, including planning how to defeat security measures, someone who understood that cameras are the biggest threat to successful crime in modern residential areas and who took steps to neutralize that threat. That sophistication suggests professional criminal or someone with specialized knowledge, not amateur or opportunistic offender. Subscribe to True Crime Vault if you have not already. Turn on all notifications. Like this video, visit our channel. Comment below with your analysis. Contact FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI if you have information. Rewards exceeding $1,200,000 remain available. Now let me discuss what the suspension of cadaver dog searches tells us and what the mixed DNA challenges mean. The Pima County Sheriff's Department announced in early March that cadaver dog searches for Nancy have been put on hold. Sheriff Nanos told Fox News Digital, quote, "They are available if needed in the future." Cadaver dogs are specially trained canines that can detect the scent of human remains. They are used in missing persons cases to search areas where remains might be located. The fact that cadaver dog searches have been suspended after being used earlier in the investigation could mean several things. One possibility: investigators have completed searching the areas where they believed remains might be located, and the searches did not produce findings. The dogs were deployed, searched systematically, and did not alert to presence of remains in the locations that were searched. That does not mean Nancy is alive. It means if remains exist, they are not in the locations that have been searched so far. Investigators might deploy dogs again in the future if new information suggests different locations to search. Another possibility: investigators increasingly believe Nancy is still alive, or at least believe that the search should focus on finding her alive rather than on recovering remains. The theory that this was kidnapping for ransom rather than murder supports the possibility that Nancy is being held somewhere. The ransom demands that were sent to TMZ, 4 separate communications demanding $6 million in cryptocurrency, suggest the perpetrator wants money and might be keeping Nancy alive as leverage to eventually force payment. A third possibility: the investigation has shifted from field searches to analytical work focusing on DNA, digital forensics, and systematic investigation of suspects. Cadaver dog searches are one investigative tool, but they require significant resources, including handlers and dogs and personnel, to support the searches. If the investigation has produced leads that are more promising than random area searches, resources might be redirected from field searches to laboratory analysis and detective work following up on those leads. The mixed DNA that Sheriff Nanos mentioned in his NBC interview represents both a challenge and an opportunity for the investigation. Nanos said, quote, "We're still having challenges trying to process mixed DNA found at Guthrie's property." He suggested to the interviewer that the mixture could be from several people. Mixed DNA means DNA from multiple individuals combined in a single sample collected from a surface or location. Separating the individual profiles from the mixture requires sophisticated laboratory techniques. Why is mixed DNA common in missing persons cases involving potential abduction? Because people leave DNA everywhere they go. Skin cells shed constantly. Touching surfaces deposits DNA. Breathing near surfaces deposits DNA through saliva droplets. In someone's home, DNA accumulates from everyone who has been in that home over time. Family members, friends, guests, repair people, delivery people. Anyone who entered the house and touched anything or breathed anywhere left DNA behind. In Nancy's case, the mixed DNA found at her property likely represents a combination of Nancy herself, family members who visited, and potentially people who had legitimate access through providing services. But it also potentially contains DNA from the perpetrator or perpetrators if they entered the house or touched surfaces or spent the 41 minutes inside that the pacemaker timeline suggests. The challenge is separating all those profiles and identifying which one belongs to the suspect rather than to innocent people. Modern forensic laboratories can separate mixed DNA profiles using statistical methods and software that analyzes genetic markers to determine which markers belong together as individual profiles. But the process is complex and time-consuming, especially when the mixture contains DNA from more than 2 or 3 people. The more people whose DNA is in the mixture, the harder it becomes to separate cleanly. Nanos saying investigators are still having challenges suggests the mixture is complex, probably contains DNA from several people as he indicated. But once profiles are separated, each individual profile becomes a powerful investigative tool. Each can be run through CODIS to check against known offenders. Each can be compared against DNA from evidence like the gloves that were found. Each can potentially be traced through forensic genealogy if no CODIS match exists. And each can be used to eliminate or confirm suspects as they are developed through other investigative means. The glove DNA that was initially thought to be a major lead turned out to be from a restaurant employee who works near Nancy's home and who is not connected to the case. That DNA was successfully traced and the person was identified and eliminated. Other gloves that were found are still being tested at a private laboratory in Florida, according to Sheriff Nanos. Those gloves might contain DNA that is relevant. The results are still pending. If DNA from those gloves matches DNA from the mixture found at Nancy's house, that would connect the gloves directly to the crime scene and would elevate them from possible evidence to definite evidence. The FBI is examining 6 theories according to reporting from multiple sources. Those 6 theories represent different possible explanations for why Nancy was taken and who took her. The theories are not mutually exclusive. Aspects of multiple theories could be correct simultaneously. But looking at each theory helps understand what investigators are considering and what evidence supports or contradicts each possibility. Theory 1. Burglary gone wrong. The suspect intended to burglarize Nancy's house, thought no one was home or thought Nancy would be easy to control, and the burglary escalated to abduction. Evidence against this theory. Nothing appears to have been stolen from the house. The suspect's behavior of disabling the camera and spending 41 minutes inside does not fit typical burglary patterns. The 8 months of Google searches indicate planning for abduction rather than for burglary. This is considered the least likely theory. Theory 2. Kidnapping for ransom targeting Savannah's wealth. The suspect knew Nancy as the mother of Savannah Guthrie, who is wealthy and famous, took Nancy to demand ransom from the family. Evidence supporting this theory. The Google searches in December 2025 for Savannah's salary indicate interest in the family's wealth. The ransom demands sent to TMZ demanding $6 million. The targeting of Nancy specifically rather than random elderly victim. Evidence against this theory. The ransom demands may be fake from people not actually involved. No proof of life was ever provided. Payment deadlines passed without consequence. This remains a strong theory. Theory 3. Professional hit or contract killing. Someone paid a professional to take Nancy, either to harm Savannah emotionally or for some other reason related to the family. Evidence supporting this theory. The sophistication of the planning, the possible use of Wi-Fi jammer or damage to utility box, the organized methodical execution. Evidence against this theory. Professional hits typically result in immediate death rather than abduction. No clear motive for who would want Nancy killed. The ransom demands do not fit professional hit pattern. This theory is possible but less likely than ransom theory. Theory 4. Cartel or organized crime involvement. Nancy's abduction is connected to South American theft groups or drug cartels that operate in Arizona. Evidence supporting this theory. Organized crime groups do conduct sophisticated home invasions in wealthy areas. Use of technology like jammers fits their methods. Tucson's proximity to the border makes cartel activity possible. Evidence against this theory. Cartels typically target people involved in drug trade or target for specific reasons related to their operations. Nancy has no known cartel connections. The focus on ransom from Savannah does not fit typical cartel patterns. This theory is considered possible but not strongly supported. Theory 5. Insider with access to Nancy. Someone who knew Nancy, who had been in her home legitimately, who had observed her vulnerability, targeted her based on that inside knowledge. Evidence supporting this theory. The elder abuse analysis from FBI experts, the mixed DNA that could include someone who provided services, the knowledge of camera positions and property layout, the 8 months of planning that could have started with legitimate access. Evidence strongly supports this theory, which connects to the tangential relationship concept. Theory 6. Random opportunistic crime. The suspect was driving through the neighborhood looking for targets and selected Nancy's house randomly. Evidence against this theory. Everything. The 8 months of Google searches, the reconnaissance visits, the camera knowledge, the equipment preparation, the 41-minute timeline. All of it contradicts random opportunistic selection. This theory is essentially ruled out by the evidence. Sheriff Nanos, confirming investigators believe it was targeted, definitively eliminates this theory. Of those 6 theories, the ones that investigators are focusing on based on Sheriff Nanos' statements and based on expert analysis are ransom kidnapping and insider access, possibly in combination. Someone who had access to Nancy through providing services or through some tangential relationship observed her vulnerability, learned about Savannah's wealth and fame, spent 8 months planning the abduction, executed it using sophisticated methods, possibly including internet disruption, and took Nancy intending to demand ransom from the family. That theory fits all the evidence. It explains the targeting. It explains the planning. It explains the sophistication. It explains the ransom demands. And it provides investigators with a clear path to identification through systematically examining everyone who had access to Nancy. Former FBI profiler Jim Clemente said investigators should look at, quote, every single person who had even a tangential relationship to Nancy Guthrie, anybody who worked on the house, on the yard, on the pool, anybody who worked in the house repairing things, delivering things, even driving her in an Uber or Lyft. That systematic approach creates a list of people who had the access and knowledge required to plan this crime. Each person on that list can be investigated. Each person's DNA can be compared against the mixed DNA. Each person's digital footprint can be examined for Google searches. Each person's alibi for February 1st can be verified. And the person whose DNA matches and whose searches match and whose alibi fails is the suspect. Retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer said the suspect visible in the doorbell footage is, quote, very identifiable. The eyebrows, the mustache, the way he attires himself, the pinky ring he wears. When you add that all together, I firmly believe that one, if not many, know who that is. The physical characteristics visible despite the mask are distinctive enough that people who know the suspect should be able to recognize him. The black mustache that FBI analysis identified, the way he positions equipment on his body, the pinky ring if that detail is accurate. All of those create a profile that is recognizable. And with $1 million in reward money available, someone who recognizes that profile has enormous financial incentive to provide information. That reward combined with the pressure of the investigation creates what experts are calling an air fryer situation. If multiple people were involved, the heat is on. Someone is going to crack. Someone is going to decide that $1 million and a deal with prosecutors is better than staying silent and hoping not to get caught. Sheriff Nanos saying investigators are definitely closer means real progress is happening. The systematic investigation of people who had access is producing results. The DNA analysis, despite being challenging, is moving forward. The digital forensics tracing Google searches is identifying possibilities. The examination of internet disruption is revealing sophisticated planning. All of those investigative threads are converging toward identification. Nancy Guthrie has been missing for over 6 weeks since February 1st. Her family continues to hope. Savannah returned to the Today Show studio in early March to thank colleagues and said she plans to return to work eventually, but remains focused on finding her mother. The family placed flowers at a growing memorial outside Nancy's home. The community continues to search and to pray and to hope for Nancy's safe return. But the evidence and the expert analysis increasingly suggest this case is moving toward resolution. Former FBI agents are saying arrest could be imminent. Sheriff Nanos is saying investigators are definitely closer and believe they know why Nancy was targeted. The sophisticated planning that the suspect demonstrated through 8 months of Google searches and possible internet disruption and careful execution is also the suspect's vulnerability, because sophistication creates evidence. Digital trails, technical knowledge that narrows suspect pools, equipment purchases that can be traced, access that creates records. The person who took Nancy planned carefully. But planning creates patterns, and patterns can be traced. The FBI and Pima County Sheriff's Department are tracing those patterns systematically. DNA is being analyzed. Digital evidence is being examined. People with access are being investigated. And convergence is approaching where multiple independent investigative threads point to the same name. True Crime Vault will continue covering Nancy's case until she is found and until whoever took her is arrested and prosecuted. Subscribe for ongoing coverage of breaking developments. Turn on all notifications. Like this video, visit our channel for comprehensive previous analysis. Comment with your thoughts on which theory you think is correct. And if you have any information, if you recognize the suspect from the doorbell footage, if you know someone who matches the profile, if you provided services to Nancy, or know someone who did, who seems suspicious, contact the FBI immediately at 1-800-CALL-FBI or Pima County Sheriff at 520-351-4900. What experts now believe about Nancy's case: that investigators know why she was targeted, that the suspect could strike again, that sophisticated planning including possible internet disruption was used, that multiple people may have been involved creating pressure from the reward. All of this changes everything about how we understand this investigation and about how close it may be to resolution. Nancy Guthrie deserves to be found. Her family deserves answers. And the evidence that the suspect created through months of planning will be what leads investigators to identify who took her and to bring that person to justice.